afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a good lunch. What I'm introducing today is second year BA Theatre Design students from Wimbledon College of Arts, and they were asked to focus on creative ways of looking at theatre and performance archives, specifically the Jocelyn Herbert Archive, through the lens of staging the real. And we wanted to show the way in which archives could be used to make other work. Artefacts were chosen in the Jocelyn Herbert Archive as subject for their inspiration and research, and the students were asked to develop dynamic ways of responding to them. 2 groups out of a total of 5 groups were chosen to present their work at this symposium. These performed presentations are the results of their investigations. Over to you.
We picked Savages by Christopher Hampton because we were intrigued by the subject over here, but it was also about what it symbolised and what Jocelyn Herbert was trying to represent with it.
The play Savages uses fictional and real events simultaneously.
We researched in Jocelyn Herbert's archive.
Jocelyn Herbert was representing a tribe she wasn't a part of. This made us think about how people can represent a tribe that's not their own. The totem pole was Herbert's way of reflecting the native Indian culture. However, it only reflects one aspect of the tribe's culture, which is the Korak festival, where they celebrate the dead. I made a collage of words and images associated with capitalism in the shape of a totem pole in order to reflect how the native Indians were still being wiped out in order to facilitate US capitalism.
What can represent a tribe?
Jocelyn used colour, pattern, texture and shape. Could we do the same thing for our tribe? For Savages, Jocelyn created these totem poles, which were used to represent the tribe and their culture. I started thinking about how my culture, community and tribe will be represented by someone who isn't a part of it. A huge part of my life is my sexuality, and associated with that, unfortunately, is an app called Grindr. For those who don't know, Grindr is a gay dating app, and I automatically found a link here because of Grindr tribes. There are many Grindr tribes, and these are terms used to identify which kind of gay man you are. For a community which stands for equality, I've never understood why I should then continue to describe myself as another label. Although these terms came from the app, because it's so popular, they have become a part of every gay man's vocabulary. But with these labels comes exclusion and discrimination. As a white gay man, I feel I can't really stand here, or sit here, and talk on behalf of the discriminated against because when compared I have it quite easy. However, it is a big issue, and when faced with responding to Jocelyn's work, I wanted to consider how she chose to represent a culture and tribe she wasn't a part of. This acted as a seed, encouraging me to think about how I would be represented and how I want to be represented. Be it as a gay man or an otter twink femme gay, none of which I would label myself as. Within the community and these tribes, built on a foundation of stereotypes, there is a hierarchy system because society and the gay community has decided that the white, straight acting gays are superior. Just referring to these terms as tribes seems to encourage all members of one to come together and separate themselves from the other, even though all of these tribes belong to the same community with a flag that represents equality and unity.
Considering how Jocelyn Herbert approached representing the real, as well as questioning our own interpretation of our tribes, I've started thinking about the links between Jocelyn designs and the real issues. Then I explored what was happening now and what was actually happened in our generation that I created. Now, before I created, the thing really important was that I chose to criticize consumerism. Then I created the collage on the coffee cups. Then, who are the savages now? You might be able to reuse these coffee cups or throw them away. It's up to you.
My totem pole represents my Jamaican heritage and the church and savages, as it connects to my upbringing. Growing up in a very strong Christian household was not easy, as the majority of my family members were part of the church. My mum was a deacon, as well as my aunts and uncles. Even my uncle Michael is a pastor. Both my grandparents are deacons, as well as two of my great aunts, Auntie Gloria and Auntie Beatrice, are both pastors. Oh, and not forgetting my dad's side of the family, my grandma is and was a deacon. My auntie Jackie is a deacon. It was a lot. Church was not just Sunday morning, but Sunday afternoon too, with at least one meeting in the week. Then there's weddings, funerals, concerts, barbecues, night shelters, and if that wasn't enough, I am now agnostic.
I made this collage and book of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. It was a socio-political movement in China from 1966 until 1976, so it happened at the same time as the real events of savages. This revolution destroyed Chinese culture, causing a serious cultural blank, and its impact continues today.
My collage represents the victims of the Nanjing massacre. More than 300,000 Chinese civilians and prisoners of war were killed by Japanese army in 6 weeks.
When I was thinking of what tribe I'm from, I thought of my nationality and how I'm British with Jamaican heritage. But when I'm with my Jamaican family, I feel more British, and when I'm around British people, I feel more Jamaican. It's as if I'm a part of two tribes, but not completely accepted in either. I was also interested in how the Native Americans, I was also interested in how the Native Indians were forced to change their culture and become more Americanized. For example, they were forced to convert to Christianity. This made me think of how my own family's culture has changed over time. My grandparents grew up in Jamaica with Jamaican parents, my parents grew up in Britain with Jamaican parents, and my brother and I grew up in Britain with British parents. But as time goes on, our family culture is slowly morphing from Jamaican to British, not because we were forced to, but because of where we were raised and who we were raised by.
To conclude, from that totem pole in Savages, we've all produced these objects, text, collage that represent something real to us. By placing them in front of you in this place, we believe we are staging the real. Thank you.
We approached this project with confusion, indecision and hesitation towards the legacy of Jocelyn Herbert. To have the archive of a number of her productions at our fingertips and the power to take this brief in an infinite amount of directions was really daunting to us as a group. We began by narrowing it down to Tony Harrison's production of The Labourers of Heracles. Oh, really well. I'll start. Using photographs and drawings and notes from Jocelyn's notebooks as a starting point for our response, we were very interested in this logo, which you might see in a second, possibly the next slide. There we go. Yeah, so this drew our research towards the setting of the production that we were initially very confused about. So what we discovered was Jocelyn and Tony Harrison went to Delphi and found a space that a new theatre was going to be built on. That's where they decided to stage this production. Heracles & Co. is a Greek cement company that sponsored the production by donating cement mixers and silo towers that became part of the work. The cement mixers became the chorus, and in return their logo became the emblem of the production. This thread of the real and the fake in the production was fascinating to us. Whilst in the archive we recorded a discussion about what we had found, and here's a quote from that recording that truly expresses our confusion. She is creating something real that's actually fake, using real people in order to create something fake that's eventually going to be made real by different people to create something real that's made to put fake things in. So for us, researching in the archive wasn't enough. And as young designers, we needed to experience her methods, but in our own way. And we were all in agreement that for this research to progress, we needed to get out of the archive and into the world. We wanted to test her methods and challenge this big legacy that everyone was telling us she had. We looked at the costume designs that Jocelyn Herbert created for this production, and we dressed 2 of our group members up as builders and set them on their lunch break in a bench in central London. And coincidentally, we found this to be very close to the National Theatre. So. We enjoyed the idea of people believing that they truly were builders on their lunch break, and we gave our audience no reason to doubt this. We all tried on the costumes, and wearing them meant that the builder's identity did feel real to us. Our body language, movements and thoughts began to change, as well as the way we saw ourselves being perceived in the world through the eyes of the passers-by. And that's when we understood the true power of costume. I will now pass you on to Melissa via live video link to talk to you about some interviews that we conducted. Melissa couldn't be here with us today, she's currently in Berlin. Thank you, Minky. We'll pop up any second.
Alright, thank you, Lois and Pip, for that. So I'm joining you from Berlin. I just want to tell you a bit about our experience whilst doing this project. So when we were filming, we had them builders, and we thought it'd be interesting to have some authentic reactions from people, the public and things like that, to see what they thought of it. And we asked them a variety of questions, including things like, did you see them? What did you think of them? Did you think they were real? To see if our fake reality was believed. And so I'm going to play you some of the interviews now.
Well, I was just wondering, or not understanding what they were doing, basically. Having some food, some drinks. And then I was looking what kind of work they were doing, gardening or whatever. I didn't see anything.
I thought there was some kind of builders or construction street.
He thought what they are doing here because there is no work and process.
It's very cool. We're talking about them, obviously in relation to our own culture. We're from Asia, so I said we can come and look, girls are sitting there. Here everyone is equal, everyone does what they want, so basically no discrimination, no difference.
There was smoking and I was thinking about I'd like to.
Do you know what? That's really strange. Because as I was thinking about it, I thought, why am I thinking about this? Why am I thinking this is different when it shouldn't be? And it isn't.
Well, I wasn't sure whether the one woman was a lady or not.
Right.
The hell no.
Okay.
I didn't do a double look.
I thought that they did make a lunchtime or something like this.
Yeah.
I didn't notice there were female.
Yeah, I didn't either. I saw this one was smoking. I thought it stank.
It's nice. It's I didn't see the girls before. Like that. So is it like
gender stereotypes and how they're still alive? And why they shouldn't be and how they don't have to be. And why we still need to conform to an older idea.
Have you done a good job?
By doing these interviews, we allowed our audience to bring their own perspective into our work and for them to bring something else to it. So something that was unusual, we didn't expect to happen, was we had a lot of people talking about feminism, which brought a lovely other layer to it, and it was really interesting to see people's reality brought into our piece of work. Thank you for that, and back to the studio with Lois and Kyung.
As you may have guessed, Melissa actually wasn't in Berlin when we made the video, but she is now.
So, by strange coincidence, one of the people we spoke to actually turned out to be an actor from the National Theatre. And it was him who began this idea that Melissa touched upon just there, that feminism could become a leading force if we were to take this research further. And in conclusion, looking back on the journey we've been on, we have tested Jocelyn Herbert's methods while staying true to ourselves as young designers.
We feel like we've come full circle, from being doubtful and confused by her methods to embracing and utilising them for our own purposes. In a sense, we feel as though we walked through Jocelyn's footsteps whilst wearing our own shoes. Thank you.
Does anybody want to ask them anything about the process?
I'd just like to say, actually,
yes.
I saw that performance. I think it was both performances a month ago, and I enjoyed them hugely at the time. But I'd just like to congratulate you all for the progress that you've made and the work that you've put into them in the last few weeks. I think it was great today. Catherine?
I'd like to know how doing this project relates to your other work on the course.
As a general sense, I think, as you can clearly see, we're all really nervous about performing, and we're not necessarily actors or performers. So it was a very big thing for us to come out of our shells and present to you, and even be so confident in our findings and making sure that we got the right facts, that we actually said things from our heart, and actually gave you a presence of what we thought of in the process was really interesting.
I think also looking through Jocelyn's archive was incredibly important for us to see, every little page that she wrote on everything, because often you doubt yourself as young designers, thinking, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. So seeing that she drinks red wine and she's wanting to remember to get it from Tesco or wherever, I don't know, in the back of her book is lovely. So going through that made us kind of believe that we can do it too. So.
Any more questions?
So the second group, so you came across the what was effectively very early corporate sponsorship by Heracles & Co. Did you explore that at all, or did you have an opinion or a discussion on that about how you would feel about corporate sponsorship now?
We definitely didn't have a discussion about it. It was a 2-week project, so we were more looking at where can we go with this. I think it's definitely interesting to see how Jocelyn built that relationship to doing that with a company. Was interesting. We weren't able to touch upon it as it was such a short project, but it's definitely interesting to know for the future.
I mean, I just say something. I mean, we've helped them just shape these projects for the performance, but in actual fact, the work's completely as we saw it. The students came up with this in 2 weeks. Both these pieces of work. What I was so fascinated about in both of them is the layering that they. I mean, Alex was talking about that today. The layering and so was our other speakers this morning. And they've got that all these different layers that they managed to kind of produce visually in their work, I think, and responded to those different kinds of realities very, very quickly, which I think is, and of course they're using mobile phones, they're using quick technology, they're using all the stuff for now that was incorporated in it. Anything else before we, yes, one more.
I just think it's a great example of research, really, which could come from anywhere, but this sense of live interaction with the material, and just talking to people, just getting out of the studio, getting out of books and getting out of a screen, and just seeing where you can take it, almost as just a research piece, or as starting to work on a device piece or whatever. But I think in terms of how it relates to your work in future as designers, I think that is the value of it, whether it's this particular archive or not, although I think also the historical perspective of this archive is very interesting, particularly with the first group. Yeah.
I mean, it's a testament, isn't it, to the liveness of the archive as well, the way in which a theatre archive can generate all these new ideas and indeed new work in a way. And of course now they've got artefacts now which become part of an archive again, which is great. Yes, Matt.
I just wanted to echo Eileen's comments about how much these presentations have developed over the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's a really a real testament to you guys how impressive they were this afternoon. I wanted to ask you about your understanding of the reels through the archive. Did you find it challenging sort of interpreting what was real from an archive, or how did you guys go about doing
that? In relation, so looking through an archive, how do we find out what's real within it?
Or was your response in many respects? Well, inevitably everything was real.
Yeah,
of course, not real as well. So I'm just intrigued what your response is to that, because it feeds into my talk a little bit.
Well, in the situation with the logo, when we were not sure if that's a real company or if it's not real company, and if she created the logo or she didn't, that was this moment where we had this discussion of real, not real, this sentence that you said. And then it was very difficult to really think, is that, because she did a great job by creating all of this, to seem like it's absolutely realistic, and we were not sure which part of it was actually done by her and which part is actually something that is real. So yeah, that bit was very difficult to dig in.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, of theatre, like the lines between real and an illusion are blurred. And yeah, it's a nice thing, I think.
I think Pamela's got a question and then Arnold, yes.
Okay, well, it's not quite a question, but I knew Jocelyn well, and she was a huge help to me. And one of the things that she said to me is that I'm a visual storyteller. She says, I tell stories through my artwork. And while I'm listening to you, and I'm remembering that theatre uniquely is a place where you can tell your stories about your heritage, stories about where we are now politically or sexually or whatever you want to say, but it is an organ through which people can hear your stories, and the visual is as important as the performance and the choice. It's all about the decisions and the choices of what you make to tell that story.
Thank you. Thanks, Pamela. And Arnold?
Actually, I was going to say something similar. Pamela and I are alike in many ways. What fascinated me is that, if I go to an archive because I'm an historian, I'm interested in what the archive tells me about the history of a production or how something is done. But you took it into the realm of sort of social action or social commentary, which strikes me as the potential power of scenography to create a reaction that is presumably different than it was originally. So I'm wondering, as you were looking at it, when you went into the archive, were you looking at it or thinking you were going to look at it as scenography, and what was that process that said, no, we have to respond to something else that's in the work?
I think when we first started it, we were actually really confused and very lost. I mean, we kind of just went to archive and was like, right, what are we looking for? And I think we didn't actually talk about much in the actual archive. We kind of just took pictures and we're like, right, like we'll have a day and then we'll come back and talk in the chat and see how we feel. And I think after that we went to uni and had like a conversation about what our own reels were and what our perception of the reel was, and then from that we took aspects of each of our reels and like combined them together. So that kind of made our whole aspect of staging the reel and our reel to whatever we saw in the archive.
We pushed a bit in that direction, I think, because I gave you a set of questions, didn't I?
Yeah.
Which were to do with, using Ellen Diamond's notion of who's speaking through this work, who's not, what was happening at the time, who is present, who's not present. So that they kind of had a series of questions which kind of came from the work, which wasn't just about the aesthetics. It was also about the sort of social conditions in which it was made and the time and all the rest of it. And also, because realising the time gap, asking, not what were you doing or what your parents were doing, but what maybe your grandparents were doing when this work was made. So it was kind of almost pushing it into looking at that historical context as well.
Yeah.
Which I think also ties up with what we were talking about this morning about the reels sort of stretching us over different periods.
Yeah, I think that for our group, we didn't know what we wanted to do. I've never seen an archive before, ever, so approaching one for a 2-week project was really difficult. I think we as a group kind of like sat down and just spoke about what we want and what could we get out of it, and I think it came down to the fact that we're all very young designers. We've not really stepped out into the world of what is being a designer. We're only just beginning in it, so I think we felt like we wanted to get something out of it that's going to teach us something, and that almost like the archive had something to prove to us, so we challenged it, and then found out a lot, and what you saw is what we found, but we wanted to challenge it basically, and it was a good experience.
We should probably one. Yeah.
Just a real quick one. I thought both performances were really a lesson to academics who present at conferences that there are other ways of doing things other than reading the paper, and I don't denigrate the academic way, but I think there was something really fresh about what you did. But I'm very interested in that we can be going down a road that might be dangerous for all of us, where creating a new binary, which is real, fake. And what came across from both performances is it was in how you spoke, the things you showed, the way that there was a multiplicity of real. Is that something that you discovered along the way? And if you did, do you think that might change the way that you confront notions of the real and the fake?
No, it was. I think we tried to dissect it into them two categories of real and fake, and very quickly we began to realise that there's no way you can
ever know,
or should try to. So I think it's just something you've kind of got to let happen. So that will stay with me next project.
Fantastic. I think you should give them a go.